It's late. The kind of late where the roads are empty, the air feels heavier, and every shadow seems to move when you're not looking. You're alone behind the wheel, headlights cutting through the darkness, and the only sound is the steady hum of the engine. But then, something feels wrong. You can't explain, it's just that prickling sensation at the back of your neck, as if someone, or something, is watching you. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 very creepy true night drive horror stories. These aren't made-up tales or campfire legends. These are real accounts from people who found themselves in the wrong place, at the wrong time, under the cover of night. People who thought they were just taking a quiet drive, until the quiet turned into something terrifying. In each story, the setting is simple: a deserted road, dim lights, and the isolation that comes with being miles away from the nearest town. But the strange figures, the unexplainable events, and the feeling that danger is right outside your car window make these moments unforgettable and deeply unsettling. Whether it's an unexpected figure stepping out from the trees, a car that won't stop following, or a sound that doesn't belong in the stillness, each of these real-life encounters will leave you second-guessing your next late-night trip. So, buckle up, keep your eyes on the road, and remember, sometimes the scariest things you'll ever see are the ones you meet in your headlights. The first story comes from a man named Daniel, who was driving home after a long shift at work. It was close to midnight, and the highway was completely empty. He knew this road well: miles of forest on both sides, no streetlights, and barely any signs of life. Normally, he found the drive peaceful, but that night, something felt different. He couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone out there. About 20 minutes into his drive, Daniel noticed something strange in the distance: a faint glow on the side of the road. At first he thought it was a car with hazard lights on. As he got closer, the shape became clearer. It wasn't a car. It was a small, dim lantern, placed right at the edge of the pavement. No one was standing nearby. No broken down vehicle. Just the lantern, glowing weakly in the dark. He slowed down, unsure if he should stop. His eyes scanned the tree line, half expecting to see someone step out. Nothing. The forest looked still, but the shadows between the trees seemed deeper than usual, almost like they were hiding something. As he passed the lantern, Daniel glanced in his rearview mirror. For a split second, he thought he saw movement near the light, like a figure bending down beside it. But when he blinked, it was gone. His pulse quickened. He pressed harder on the gas, the empty road stretching ahead like it had no end. The silence in his car suddenly feeling louder than ever. Daniel kept driving, trying to convince himself it was nothing. Maybe someone had dropped the lantern there earlier and forgotten about it. But the image wouldn't leave his mind. The strange glow, the faint movement. The road seemed longer than usual now, every bend in the highway pulling him deeper into the darkness. A few miles later, something made his stomach tighten. In the distance, on the right side of the road, he saw another light. This time it wasn't a lantern, it was a faint flickering beam, almost like someone holding a flashlight and slowly waving it back and forth. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He thought about stopping, maybe asking if someone needed help, but a voice in the back of his mind told him to keep going. He slowed down just enough to get a better look. As he passed, he caught a glimpse of what looked like a tall figure standing just beyond the beam. Their face was hidden in shadow, but their heads seemed to turn slightly, following his car as it moved past. He didn't hear anything, no call for help, no sound of footsteps, but the air inside his car felt colder. Further up the road, Daniel's phone buzzed with a low battery warning. He reached for the charger but froze. In the reflection of his side mirror, far behind him, 2 faint lights now glowed where he had just driven past. They weren't headlights. They were small, steady, and unblinking, like eyes in the dark. Watching, Daniel's heartbeat thudded in his ears as he pressed harder on the gas. The empty highway seemed endless, the trees on either side leaning in like they were closing him in. Every so often, he'd glance in the rearview mirror, and each time those 2 dim lights were still their same distance, same glow, never blinking, never fading. It didn't feel like he was being followed by a person. It felt like something was simply there. The silence in the car was unbearable now. Even the hum of the engine felt distant, muffled, like the world outside had shifted into something unfamiliar. Daniel gripped the wheel tighter, trying to focus on the road ahead, but his mind kept flashing back to the figure by the flashlight. The way it turned its head, the way it didn't move toward him. It was almost like it had been waiting. Then, up ahead, he saw something that made his chest tighten. In the middle of the lane, there was another light, but this one was brighter, almost white, and it was swaying slowly side to side. His first thought was a roadblock, maybe construction, but there were no cones, no signs, no vehicles, just the light, and the faint outline of a person holding it. Daniel's foot hovered over the brake. The figure didn't step aside, didn't wave, didn't signal. They just stood there, blocking the road. The forest on either side was pitch black. His pulse quickened as he realized if he stopped here, there would be nowhere to run. Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't just slam on the brakes in the middle of nowhere, but swerving around meant getting dangerously close to the tree line. As he slowed slightly, trying to decide, his headlights caught something his stomach couldn't process at first. Behind the figure holding the bright light, deeper in the darkness, were more shapes. Not 1 or 2, but several. standing perfectly still between the trees. Their outlines were faint, but enough to know they were there, watching. His instincts screamed at him to keep moving. But before he could act, the figure in the road slowly raised its free hand, not waving, not lifting it in a slow, deliberate motion, palm facing him. It was the kind of gesture that didn't ask him to stop. It demanded it. Daniel's hands trembled on the wheel. He glanced at his side mirror again, and his chest tightened. The two glowing lights that had been following him weren't far behind anymore. They were closer, much closer in. Now he could see that they were moving at the same exact speed as his car, like they were tethered to him. He was boxed in. The bright light ahead, the glowing lights behind, and the motionless figures in the trees. The air inside the car felt heavier, almost thick, as if every breath took more effort. A sudden realization struck him: whatever was happening here wasn't random. It felt planned, and whatever they wanted, they had been waiting for him. Daniel's grip tightened as he made a split-second decision. He wasn't going to stop. He floored the accelerator, the engine roaring as the headlights bore down on the figure in the road. Just when it seemed he'd have to swerve, the figure stepped aside in one smooth motion, vanishing into the shadows without a sound. Daniel sped past, his eyes fixed on the road, but in the corner of his vision he caught a glimpse of those other shapes between the trees. They were moving now, all in the same direction, as if following him from the forest. The glowing lights in his rear view didn't fade. In fact, they seemed to be gaining. His heart pounded, but just as panic began to overwhelm him, he spotted something ahead: a green highway sign. The first sign of civilization in miles. Relief surged through him. If he could just make it to the next town, he'd be safe. He took the exit, speeding down the ramp toward the faint glow of streetlights. When he finally reached the edge of town, the rearview mirror showed nothing but empty road. The glowing lights were gone. The forest was gone. Everything was normal again. Daniel pulled over, trying to catch his breath. That's when he noticed something that made his skin crawl. On the passenger seat, sitting neatly as if it had been placed there with care, was a small, dim lantern, the same one he'd seen on the roadside at the very start of his drive. And this time, it was still lit. Daniel stared at the lantern, his hands frozen on the steering wheel. The faint, flickering lights seemed impossibly out of place in the quiet streets of the small town. He hadn't stopped once since leaving the forest. There was no way anyone could have placed it there without him noticing. He hesitated before picking it up, feeling its strange warmth against his fingers. The glass was cold, but the flame inside burned steady, unaffected by the movement of the car or the cool night air. A part of him wanted to toss it out and drive away, but another part couldn't ignore the nagging question: why him? Daniel decided to take the lantern to the small local police station, hoping they could explain it. The officer at the desk gave him a puzzled look when he set it down. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her tone shifting. When he told her about the figures, the lights, and the blocked road, she grew quiet. Finally, she said, "You're not the first to see something like this out there." Her words didn't comfort him. She explained that, over the years, a few travelers reported strange lights and silent figures along that same stretch of road, but none of them had ever brought back an object. Daniel left the lantern with the police, but the image stayed with him. Weeks later, while driving at night, he still found himself checking the mirrors, because deep down, he knew